In this video I'll be covering how to create this Yanko design chair. It's a single piece of sheet metal and I'll be going through how to quickly create it within SolidWorks. So the first thing I did was save out this image so that I can bring it into SolidWorks. And then I'm going to go ahead and come in and create a new part. And I'm going to go ahead and draw this up on the right plane. So I'll click on the right plane and select Sketch. And then I'm going to come into Tools, choose Sketch Tools, and choose the Sketch Picture option. And I'll go ahead and open up the picture into SolidWorks. And I'll actually edit the position of this after I add in a quick center line. So I'm making the assumption here that the seat's going to be about, let's say, 44 inches tall. And the dimensions aren't going to be too important here. I'll just build it based on this assumed height. And the rest of the dimensions are going to be approximate. I'll go ahead and expand the sketch picture. Until it's about where I want it to be. So that looks about right. So I'll go ahead and start drawing in my sketch from here. So I'll go ahead and draw in a triangle, but leave the top unconnected. And then I'll draw in this edge as well. And I want to keep these two disconnected, otherwise when I try to create a sheet metal flange from this, the feature is going to fail. So I want to go ahead and follow these lines as closely as possible. And I'm also going to make this top point and the top of the center line horizontal. Once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and add in dimensions. Actually, I'll add a fillet first to these bottom corners. And we'll make these about 1.5 inches. And I'll add one more fillet here. We can look at what 3 inches looks like, 6 inches. And maybe keep a 6-inch fillet. And then we can go ahead and start defining the part with dimensions. I'll go ahead and give this a spacing away from this point. Make this 1/4 inch. And we'll go ahead and give these angles. And we could go ahead and make these rational numbers if we wanted. In this case, it's not going to matter much, as I'm just doing this for a sort of showcase model. It's not something that I would turn around and produce. So I'll go ahead and define an angle, and that'll fully define this sketch. From here, I want to come into the Sheet Metal tab. If you don't have the Sheet Metal tab activated, you can right click and choose Sheet Metal, and then I'll choose the Base Flange tab option. That sketch should already be selected. If not, you can go ahead and just click on the sketch, or open up the Feature Manager and click on the sketch there. I'm going to go ahead and create a mid-plane base flange, and this will have a width of 20 inches. It's going to have a thickness of 1/8 of an inch, and the bend radius in this case doesn't matter, as we won't be using the default bend radius for any of the features. And I'll go ahead and leave the other options at their default, as once again this isn't a production model. So now we have this portion of the profile. We're going to need cutouts for the portion of this side that passes through this side of the flange. So to create the cuts, we're going to want to use an unfold feature. I'm going to go ahead and select this face as the fixed face and say collect all bends, and I'll let it unfold. Now this is the bend that we want the cutout in, so we'll go ahead and create a sketch on this face. I'm going to go ahead and go normal 2, and I'll draw a center line across that face. Then I'm going to go ahead and choose the center rectangle and draw in a rectangle. Now this isn't going to make this cutout exactly correct. If we wanted to do this right, it would be slightly offset from the center line. But in this case, the technique is more important than the actual dimensions, as I'd mentioned previously. So we'll go ahead and live with it as it is. So I'll go ahead and add in dimensions. Give this a width of 5 inches. And then come into the Features tab and create an extruded cut. And we'll just say link to thickness and click OK. Next, I want to mirror this onto the other side of the part. So I'll choose the right plane, choose to mirror, and choose out the cutout. Now that we have that cutout, we can go ahead and fold the part back up. Once again, collect all bends and click OK. And we can see that there's quite a bit of a gap between this feature and the feature here. So we can go ahead and modify those dimensions if we want. Maybe make this height 6 inches. It looks to be a little bit too small, so we'll go ahead and increase this by 1 inch. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and show that original sketch, as I want to draw in a guide for creating the next few features. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new plane, and I'll go ahead and choose out the two opposing faces. I could hide the sketch to make this a little bit easier if you can't see it, but that's the plane that we want on the mid plane. Then we'll go ahead and create a sketch on that plane. Draw a line, a tangent arc, and another line tangent. And you'll also notice a curve in the chair itself, as well as on the backrest. And these are generally things that are going to be easier to add in with sketched bends after the fact, rather than trying to create this curved shape now. So I'll go ahead and give this a dimension. Let's give it a 2-inch radius. And once again, the dimensions aren't too important, so I'll go ahead and leave the sketch otherwise underdefined. And then I'm going to go ahead and hide out that sketch. So the next thing I want to do is create a tab that's going to pass through this empty face. So I'll just go ahead and create a sketch on this face. Choose the corner rectangle tool. And then I want to draw in a center line. I'll go ahead and move this out of the way. I'm going to draw in a center line at the midpoint of that line. And then I want to make this point at the bottom of the center line the midpoint of this line, so that now this is centered inside that area. Then I'm going to go ahead and make this coincident to the, or just before the bend, and then I'll give this a width of 3.5 inches, and then go ahead and add in a base flange tab. And that'll automatically pick up the parameters. We want that merge result selected, and we'll go ahead and click OK. Next thing we want to do is create an edge flange from our new tab. And we're going to modify both the angle, and we're going to uncheck that use default radius. And you can see we can bring this up to try to match this radius. In this case, I think it was a radius of 2. Let's see if that works. And you'll notice that the preview disappears. It's because the length is not large enough. Once the length exceeds the distance to the end of the radius, then you can create the edge flange. So I'll go ahead and change the angle. We'll extend this out. And we just want to go normal to the right plane. Or just rotate this so we're close so we can see that angle. Looks like 124 degrees will work. And the length's about right. Once again, that's not too important. We'll go ahead and click OK. And I'll hide out that guide sketch as well as this plane. Next, I want to go ahead and mirror over these two features. So once again, we'll choose the mirror tool, and we'll choose that tab and the edge flange, and click OK. The last thing we need is to create the top of the seat. So we can go ahead and draw that in on top of one of these flanges. I'm going to use a corner rectangle and draw out from this corner. And make this collinear to one of these edges and collinear to this edge. And I'll go ahead and create a base flange tab. And that'll automatically merge itself to our edge flanges. So I just wanted to point out that if we had added that curve in the seat beforehand, we wouldn't have been able to use this method of creating the base flange to merge these two together. But we still could have created a matching curved sketch on the right plane and created the flange like an extrusion to merge into those edge flanges. This way is just a slight bit easier to create this geometry. Lastly, I'm going to create a new sketch on the right plane. And with this sketch, we'll create the profile for the tube that goes between these faces. I'll go ahead and just make this tangent and make these two tangent as well. And then I can go ahead and add a dimension if I want. Maybe make it 3 inches. And then we can create an extruded thin on the inside. Make this mid-plane. Maybe give it a width of 20 or 18 inches. And turn off the merge result. And with that, we don't have the exact chair, but that is pretty much how you would model everything within this sheet metal chair. Lastly, if we wanted, we could add in appearances. Maybe make this brushed aluminum and add an appearance to the tube. And maybe make it a clear polycarbonate plastic. But that's how you would model this chair using sheet metal features within SolidWorks.